Dean Legge from Dawg Post. I was talking to an insider at Georgia over the weekend, and we started talking about Gunnar Stockton and sort of what the hope and ambition is there, and talking about the difference between Puglisi, Gunnar Stockton. You know, a year ago at this time, Ryan Puglisi was hurt. He didn't have the opportunity to really go at it in spring ball. So what does that mean moving forward, and how is this whole thing going to shake out at Georgia? Dean Legge from Dawg Post. Let's talk about it for a little bit. I think the big thing right now is when you talk with people. First of all, Georgia, I think they feel comfortable with where they're at quarterback, generally speaking. I mean, you have two really good guys. And the other thing is, too, this is the thing about quarterback. As you know, you can just bring somebody in. I mean, it doesn't usually work, but nothing usually works. I mean, it's whatever you can do at the time. But, there's not going to be any more Carson Becks. Now, this guy is entering his, 2001, 2, 3, 4. This guy's entering his 6th season of college football. I think it's really smart, to be honest with you, particularly, I mean, forget the money, but just stay in college forever, sure. But most places are not going to be like that. I mean, Gunnar Stockton is as close to that right now as it's going to get. What separates him from Ryan Puglisi? Right now, it's the ability to play quarterback, just play the game, right? Physically, I think Puglisi is probably a better physical prospect. I don't think you're going to get a lot of people disagreeing. But that doesn't mean Gunnar Stockton is without talent or skill. It's just that two things can be true at the same time. You can have a guy Randy McMichael was not a starter at Georgia the entire time. He played behind Larry Brown, who was a 4-year starter. He played behind Jermaine Wiggins, who came in and started he started some games, but Wiggins was a 2-year player at Georgia after transferring in from Marshall. I mean, Randy McMichael was a better NFL prospect than those guys, but he just wasn't quite ready yet. So that's the question is, A, do we know? There's a few questions. First of all, do we know for sure that Gunnar Stockton and Ryan Puglisi are in a legitimate quarterback competition? The answer to that is we will never know the answer to that because Kirby Smart's not going to answer that question. He's going to say, well, there's competition at every position, every day, and so forth. And that's probably true. So to dismiss it as there's no competition at all is wrong. To say that there's a full-on competition is probably wrong. It's just what it is when they go practice. You know, if someone looks bad and they consistently look bad, they're not going to start, and they may be on their way out the program. That's where we're at with this thing. Secondly, does Stockton have the wherewithal and the skill to not just get the job done in practices, but during games? I think when you look at, in my time watching Gunnar, before he was committed to South Carolina, when he was committed to South Carolina, and then when he eventually committed to Georgia, you talk about the backup a year ago with the Orange Bowl. A year ago is coming further and further away. During the 23 season, when he came in at the Orange Bowl, he looked pretty good there. I think he played pretty well against Notre Dame. He played really well against Texas until that interception, which is not playing quarterback. But in all of that time, just watching him, he has always understood the position. I talked with somebody at Georgia that was concerned about his sixth sense of oncoming pass rush, and they were very concerned about that. But their sort of dismissal, maybe to make themselves feel better, I'm not sure, was that sometimes has to come with time and playing. But Carson Beck was a very good passer in 2023. He moved in the pocket in a way that was impressive, to be honest with you, for many times. He just regressed in 24. He went backwards. He didn't have the players with McConkey and Bowers. He didn't have the offensive line. That was more obvious than McConkey and Bowers to me, particularly as the season went on, because McConkey and Bowers missed games. There were plenty of games that those two guys did not play in. So, but the offensive line was better. They had the ability with Kendall and Edwards to run the ball effectively. That didn't happen in 2024. So unless this offensive line gets straight, you're not going to have a good season. but they're not starting at zero there either. There's just some work to do for Georgia on the offensive side of the ball. Now, as it relates to Puglisi, you're talking about someone who has very good skill. You don't just wind up at Georgia. There's a reason you're there, particularly as a quarterback. I mean, when is the last time they've not gotten an elite national quarterback? Gunnar Stockton basically reset all the records in Georgia. Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson were recent quarterbacks in Georgia. That's who his records were going up against. If you watched him play at Raven, I mean, this guy, it was like everything was in slow motion for him. So with Puglisi, there was a reason they loved him. I mean, this is a guy that Todd Monken wanted. And then, Mike Bobo nailed it down. So, if there's one thing Mike can do, for all of his criticism, he can develop quarterbacks. You think about David Green, DJ Shockley, Aaron Murray, Matthew Stafford. His number one quarterback is usually really good. Carson Beck. I mean, I got to say, he was the offensive coordinator 2 years in a row with Carson Beck. So, now Carson regressed. Was that Carson? Was it the offensive line? Was that Mike? I think it was the offensive line. Maybe a little bit Carson, but I think it was the offensive line. So your number one at Georgia is usually very good. Puglisi, the challenge for him, Gunnar Stockton's not going to grow 2-3 more inches. Ryan Puglisi's got to go play a lot of snaps. And the only way you can play a bunch of snaps in games is to get where you got to go during practice. And that's it, man. It's just work. That's all. You're not going to just build a house in a day. You have to go through the rigors of the entire thing, and, it is what it is. And that's what Puglisi's got to get through to get an opportunity to play in games to where it will matter what he does. Rewind a little bit. Think about it this way. In 2021, Stetson Bennett was dead and gone in the minds of Georgia fans. Gone. Completely surpassed by JT Daniels, period. Well, here's the lesson for everybody watching about Stetson Bennett. He didn't stop. He would not stop. And so his not great 2020, at the end of that season, JT Daniels replaces him. Stetson Bennett's never going to play a snap again at Georgia. They told him that. You will never play here. Okay, I got the timing wrong there, but they told him in 20, you're not going to ever play here, if my math is right. You'll never play here. At the time, they had JT, they had Jamie Newman, they had brought Carson Beck in. I mean, he was way down on the totem pole, but when they needed Georgia, Stetson was there for him. Well, it would have been easy for Stetson to just basically go out and party all the year in 2021 because nothing's going to happen with JT Daniels. That's not what happened. While JT Daniels was the starter at Georgia, Stetson Bennett kept doing his thing. JT Daniels was hurt from the start. He was never right at Georgia, to be honest. It was the oblique. It was this. It was that. It was the other. It was something constantly. But Carson didn't take over for JT Daniels, which would have made plenty of sense as the heir apparent. No, it was Stetson. And Stetson just beat Beck. And eventually, he beat JT Daniels. If you're Ryan Puglisi, or if you're any backup in America in college football, whether you're at the junior varsity level in high school, or if you're the NFL, your role models got to be people like Stetson Bennett, Tom Brady, and you never know when you're going to get your chance. We have entered into seasons at Georgia in 2016, 17, 20, 21, and 24, where the guy that started the season as the starter, often as the obvious starter, did not finish the season as the starter. And two of those seasons, Georgia played for a national championship. You've got to be ready all the time. It can't be that you're Ryan Puglisi and you feel sorry for yourself. I'm not suggesting someone's told me that he feels sorry for himself. I'm just talking. But whoever you are, you can't feel sorry. This is not about, the challenging part about playing in college is, yes, you're on a team, and it's not about you. But the reality is, it is about you when you're out there practicing, because if you don't go hard, then you won't get a shot to help the team. You won't. And you're doing, first, yourself a disservice. And secondly, you're doing the team. So there's so much opportunity for Puglisi to try to start over Gunnar Stockton. If I were Gunnar, I would want Puglisi to try to beat me out every single day. Why? So that I can beat him out every single day. But as far as the insiders' kind of discussion about this is, it's just more, I mean, it functions better. The offense functions better when Stockton plays. But sort of on the hoof or whatever, maybe throwing drills or whatever, it might be that Puglisi's a better thrower, but you got to go play. You've got to play the position. That's the hardest part about quarterback, but that's the most important part too. Hey, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video.